Before we begin, take a moment to breathe in the truth. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a lesson. A reminder. That behind every mop, behind every uniform, behind every quiet act, is someone watching. This is True Echo, where every story leaves a mark. Ray Booker parked his pickup truck across from Westgate Auto Group just before dawn. The sky was still a bruised gray, the sun unsure of itself, and the lot was a hollow echo of what it would become in a few hours, buzzing, sleek, high stakes. But for now, it was quiet. Peaceful. A blank slate. In the passenger seat, a battered mop bucket rattled against a stack of neatly folded rags. Ray looked at his own reflection in the rearview mirror, deep brown skin, salt and pepper beard, sharp but patient eyes. He didn't look like the kind of man who had once overseen a merger between two Fortune 500 companies or someone who owned a private jet. And that was the point. The maintenance uniform was crisp but unremarkable, khaki pants, a navy shirt with the name, Ray, stitched over the chest, black shoes still shiny with polish. He pulled the brim of his cap down low and stepped out, wheeling the bucket toward the rear employee entrance like he belonged there. No one questioned him. No one even looked twice. That's how he knew the culture was broken. Inside, employees moved like parts of a machine. Receptionists tapped away on keyboards without glancing up. Salesmen whispered about leads. Somewhere in the back, a service tech barked out a laugh that ended in a cough. Ray began mopping the far side of the showroom floor, just beneath the towering LED sign that glowed with the dealership's motto, "Luxury starts here." But what he noticed most wasn't the shine of the vehicles or the glint of chrome, it was the tension. The clipped answers. The stifled chuckles. People were performing. Not working. Surviving, not thriving. And then came the thunder of heels. At exactly 8:15, Sasha Klein entered like a siren in stilettos, loud, polished, unavoidable. Her presence cut through the room like a whip. Red heels. Navy suit. A purse that cost more than Ray's entire truck. Who cleared maintenance to be out here during open hours? She barked from across the floor, stopping a few feet from Ray. Trying to get it clean before the rush, he said, not looking up. That mop water looks like sludge. Are you even trained? Yes, ma'am, he replied evenly, still kneeling. Her eyes narrowed. This isn't a bus station. Keep your operation out of sight. She turned with a snarl, muttering loud enough for customers to hear, standards are really slipping. Ray said nothing. He simply resumed his quiet work, filing away everything. Not the insult, he'd heard worse. But the silence of the staff, the way shoulders tensed, the shame that hovered in the air like dust. Sasha wasn't just a bad boss. She was a signal. And that signal was flashing red. The rest of that day unfolded like a quiet storm. Ray mopped and swept and buffed the showroom until every surface gleamed, but his real focus wasn't on dirt, it was on people. On body language. On who flinched, who faked smiles, who walked taller when Sasha wasn't around. And it was clear within hours, fear had soaked into the bones of this building. At the finance desk, a young mother struggled to keep her toddler calm as her husband finalized a lease. The child dropped his juice, and before the parents could even react, Ray was already there with a towel in hand. No hesitation. No condescension. Just action. But then, once again, heels on tile. Sasha. Oh no, she said, sharp and theatrical, drawing glances from the waiting customers. You're wiping floors on your knees. In front of clients. Ray stood slowly. There was a spill. You think this is a truck stop? These vehicles cost more than some people's homes. One of the salesmen, Eddie, barely out of college and clearly uncomfortable, stepped forward. Miss Klein, maybe he was just. Not your turn, Eddie, she snapped, shutting him down in one breath. Ray's voice came low, steady. You done. The words floated in the air like a slow warning. Sasha blinked, thrown by the calm. I'm here to work. That's what I'm doing. Cleaning up, keeping the floor safe. That's all. She scoffed, spun on her heel, and stormed off. Ray turned back to his cart, but the shift had already happened. People were watching him now. Not as a janitor. But as a man. That moment, that silence he left behind, it said more than any speech. He didn't flinch. He didn't shrink. He didn't look for approval. And in a place like Westgate Auto, that was revolutionary. In the break room later that day, whispers filled the space like steam from the ancient microwave. Lana from the front desk muttered, that wasn't right. She humiliated him. Dana, a finance assistant with no time for nonsense, replied, she acts like we're all lucky to be here. Even him. Especially him. Eddie sat quiet, eyes narrowed. He's not a janitor, he finally said. He doesn't act like one. You see how he just stood there? Like he was watching us, Lana added. Dana leaned back. He might be more than he looks. Outside the break room, Ray refilled his spray bottle and caught bits of the conversation. It was working. People were thinking. Questioning. Beginning to see. He didn't need their loyalty yet. Just their curiosity. Sasha, meanwhile, was unraveling. By the end of the day, she was on the phone with HR, yelling about a janitor damaging the brand image. She didn't see a problem with herself. She only saw a problem with someone not staying in their assigned role. She didn't understand that her role was already being rewritten. Ray made mental notes as he moved through the rest of the building, how service techs were excluded from morning meetings, how tension followed Sasha like perfume, how small kindnesses were rare and often punished. The dealership ran on appearance. On fear. But under that veneer, there were cracks. Real people. Quiet leaders. Hidden potential. All of it smothered by one woman's obsession with control. By the time Ray left that evening, the mop bucket was back in his truck, but the real cleanup was just beginning. Because the man they thought was beneath them, owned everything above them. 3 days later, the sun returned to Westgate Auto with a fresh shine, bouncing off glass panes and luxury hoods like the place was brand new. But the buzz inside was old and familiar, tight routines, anxious glances, and Sasha Klein at the center of it all, barking orders with the same clipped smile she'd perfected over years of rule by intimidation. But today, her energy was different. She had just gotten off the phone with a high-ranking exec from corporate. A representative from Ellis Holdings, one of the biggest silent ownership groups in the region, was scheduled to drop by the dealership. No specific time. No agenda. Just observe operations. To Sasha, that meant one thing, a performance opportunity. She straightened every vase in the building. Walked the lot twice. Snapped at Eddie to fix his posture and reminded Lana to smile on every phone call. Her confidence surged, not because of leadership, but because she believed she could fake one. But she wasn't ready for what pulled up at 10 a.m. A black town car eased to a stop in front of the main entrance. Sasha caught sight of it through the glass, clipboard in hand, heels ready. The driver stepped out and opened the rear door. The man who stepped out wore a tailored gray suit, shoulders squared, steps confident. She immediately assumed he was the rep, but then the other door opened, and everything froze. A second man emerged, taller, broader, darker. A clean navy suit, polished shoes, sharp white shirt. No mop bucket. No name patch. Just a watch that caught the morning light, and eyes that she'd seen before. Ray Booker. Her stomach twisted, confusion breaking through her practiced grin. She blinked, once. Twice. He walked in front of the car, side by side with the first man. And then that man raised a hand and addressed the entire dealership. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce Mr. Raymond Booker. Effective immediately, he is the principal owner of Westgate Auto Group. Silence thundered across the showroom. Lana's mouth parted. Eddie stood stock still. Even the service techs in the back poked their heads in, drawn by the sudden shift in gravity. Ray stepped forward. Calm. Composed. You heard him, he said. I'm the new owner. Sasha's voice broke in like glass underfoot. Excuse me. Ray looked directly at her, his voice like steel wrapped in velvet. The janitor? Yeah, that was me. He let it hang. Let it sting. I spent the past few days walking these halls. Quietly. To see who I could trust with my business. To see how people treated others when they thought no one important was watching. Her lips moved, but no sound came. He kept going. You judged me in 30 seconds. Humiliated me, twice. Not because I failed at something, but because I didn't fit your picture of who belonged here. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. And if that's how you treat someone when you think they're beneath you, then I have to ask, how do you treat everyone else when I'm not in the room? The whole staff was watching now. The air shifted. Power had changed hands, and everyone felt it. I'm calling a full staff meeting in 1 hour, Ray said. Sales, service, admin, every department. Mandatory. Sasha tried again, her voice lower. Am I included in that? Ray didn't even look at her. You'll be addressed. And with that, he walked off toward the conference room, the silence behind him louder than any applause. Sasha stood in place, not blinking, not breathing. Her perfect image cracking at the edges. She wasn't the storm anymore. She was the debris. The conference room was full before the hour was up. Folding chairs scraped the tile as service techs filed in, still in coveralls, standing beside finance officers in pressed slacks. Sales staff leaned against walls. The front desk crew clutched their notebooks like shields. For once, no one looked at their phones. Everyone was waiting for Ray Booker. He entered without notes, without slides, without a script. Just presence. Thanks for coming, he began, voice even but commanding. I know this wasn't on your schedule. But then again, neither was what I saw this week. He paced once across the front of the room, hands clasped behind his back like a coach sizing up a team. My name is Raymond Booker. I own this dealership. But you probably already figured that out. A few people chuckled nervously. Not sarcastic, just unsure. Ray nodded. I didn't come in with a title because titles don't show you the truth. People do. So I showed up as someone you could ignore, and some of you did. Others noticed more than you said. His eyes passed over Lana, over Eddie, over Dana in the back. They held his gaze. For a few days, I cleaned your floors. Took out your trash. Watched. Listened. And what I found wasn't broken systems, it was broken spirit. Sasha stood at the far side of the room, arms folded, jaw locked. Ray didn't look directly at her. Not yet. I saw people working hard. Really hard. But not for recognition. Not for growth. Just to stay out of the way of power. That's not leadership. That's fear. The room went still. Somewhere, someone swallowed too loudly. No one moved. I'm not here to play favorites. I'm here to fix what's wrong. Starting with how we treat each other. Finally, he turned toward Sasha. Miss Klein. You've led this branch for 5 years. Your sales numbers are solid. But performance without people isn't success, it's damage. She opened her mouth, but Ray cut her off. I'm not asking for input, he said. I'm informing you. Your leadership position will be reviewed. Effective immediately, you're on administrative leave. Paid, for now. HR will follow up. Sasha's shoulders sagged just slightly. No protests. No defiance. Just a quiet step back, like someone who finally saw the tide pulling them out. Ray turned back to the group. We will build something new here. Not a showroom with mirrors and smiles, but a workplace with real trust. Where your voice matters whether you wear a tie or a name tag. A murmur moved through the crowd, not loud, not wild. But alive. Starting today, we lead with respect. Every department. Every person. If you've got something to say, my door is open. No titles required. The meeting ended with no clapping, no cheers. Just the weight of change settling into every chair, every corner. Outside the room, the old hierarchy had already started cracking. Lana exhaled deeply at the front desk. Dana offered a slow nod to no one in particular. Eddie, standing in the hallway, whispered, he meant it. And upstairs, Sasha packed her desk in silence. There was no security escort. No public scene. Just one last walk down the stairs, and the sound of her heels, clicking not with power, but with finality. Ray sat alone in the conference room, notebook open. He wrote 2 words. Now begins. The next morning, Westgate Auto was unusually quiet. Not empty, just subdued. Like a storm had passed and everyone was still waiting to see what damage had been done. The sales floor was immaculate. But this time, it wasn't just for appearance, it was out of respect. People were early. Phones were answered on the first ring. Even the coffee was freshly brewed instead of the usual burnt leftovers from the day before. At 7:30 a.m. sharp, Ray walked through the front doors, not the service bay, and nodded a calm good morning to Lana. She stood up a little straighter and smiled, unforced for once. He was dressed simply, a navy blazer, open collar, brown leather shoes. No fanfare. Just presence. At 10 a.m., Lana walked across the floor and stopped beside Sasha's now empty desk. She cleared her throat gently. He wants to see you, she said quietly. Dean raised his head from the service request he was reading. Me? She nodded. Upstairs. Dean, the most understated employee in the building, had worked at Westgate for 7 years. Quiet. Sharp. Reliable. The guy everyone called when the system went down or a tire order got botched. He wasn't flashy. He didn't play office politics. And that's why Ray noticed him. Inside the office, Ray motioned to the chair. Sit. This isn't an interrogation. Dean sat, cautious but composed. I've been watching, Ray said. You're consistent. Quiet, but consistent. Dean gave a small shrug. I just do my job. And that's exactly why I'm offering you the role of interim general manager. Trial period for 60 days. Same authority, different energy. Dean froze. You serious? Dead, Ray said. I'm not looking for charisma. I'm looking for integrity. Leadership doesn't need a spotlight. It needs clarity. Dean took a long breath, then nodded once. Okay. I'll do my best. That's all I ask. Downstairs, the news spread fast. Sasha was out. Dean was in. But there were no cheers. No sarcastic high-fives. What there was breath. Real, collective breath. People who had been walking on eggshells for months could finally put their feet down. At noon, the service team noticed something new. Ray walked the bay with his sleeves rolled up, talking to techs by name. Asking questions. Not just about cars, but about their lives. One of the porters, a kid named Malcolm, actually laughed when Ray joked about his music playlist. In the showroom, Eddie caught Lana's eye. You believe this? I don't know, she said, but it feels different. Later that afternoon, Ray popped into the finance office and leaned on the edge of a desk. "You ever get to talk about what's not working?" he asked Dana. She blinked. "You mean, like, out loud?" "Yes." "Not once." "Well," Ray said, "that's over." By 3 p.m., Ray held another brief meeting. Informal. Standing. Just a few words. No scripts. No pressure. Just progress. "I'm not interested in perfect. I'm interested in honest." When he finished, someone clapped. Dana. Then Eddie. Then more. Not loud. Not forced. Just real. That night, as Ray sat alone in his office, the sunset casting gold against the windows, he opened the same notebook and wrote. The mop was never the disguise. The silence was. Then he circled 2 names, Dean. Dana. It was time to rebuild, not with titles and threats, but with people. The following week at Westgate Auto wasn't perfect, but it was different. Conversations happened in the open. Laughter returned, cautiously at first, like an animal testing the air after a long winter. Ray didn't impose rules with bullet points or email blasts. He listened. Walked. Talked. And slowly, the walls between departments began to crumble. One small moment defined the shift. It started with a mistake. A new finance associate, Javier, double-booked a lease review and accidentally gave a customer the wrong paperwork. In the old days, that would have meant a public dressing down from Sasha. Red ink. Blame. Fear. Instead, Dean approached him with calm. "Honest mistake," he said. "We'll fix it together. Then you'll fix it yourself next time." Javier was stunned. Not because he was let off the hook, but because someone trusted him to do better. By Friday, that energy had begun to spread. Ray, sensing it, gave the team a surprise, a cookout behind the dealership. Nothing fancy. Just hot dogs, chips, folding chairs, and an old Bluetooth speaker someone had connected to a Soul Classics playlist. The smell of grilled food drifted over the lot like a celebration. Not for success, but for survival. Ray stood on a pallet someone had turned into a makeshift stage. He raised a soda can in his hand and scanned the faces around him, technicians, receptionists, detailers, sales reps, some smiling. Some unsure. All listening. "I bought this dealership," he began, "because I believe in businesses that run on people. Not on fear. Not on polish. But on people." He took a breath. You don't need a title to be valuable. You don't need a corner office to lead. If you have a better idea, say it. If something's broken, bring it to me. No more filters. No more hiding behind protocol. The crowd was silent. Then Dana clapped. Steady. Measured. Others followed. Not loud. But honest. Afterward, Ray stepped off the pallet and grabbed a plate. Dean sat nearby, sipping a cola. Eddie was making a joke to a service tech, who actually laughed out loud. Lana played DJ with surprising skill, switching between Stevie Wonder and Usher like a pro. As the afternoon faded into evening, Ray looked toward the old utility closet. The mop bucket was still in the corner, exactly where he left it on day 1. He smiled. That bucket didn't represent shame. It represented perspective. The next morning, Westgate Auto opened like any other. But inside, people carried themselves differently. Shoulders back. Voices stronger. Respect wasn't demanded anymore. It was earned. 2 weeks after the cookout, the real test came. A high-profile client, Robert Langston, known for his wealth and sharper-than-razor reviews, walked into Westgate Auto. Word was, he was shopping for 3 custom vehicles for his company fleet. His assistant had scheduled a private viewing. In the old Westgate, Sasha would have rolled out a red carpet, literally. Instead, now it was Dean and Eddie greeting him at the door with quiet confidence. Langston's reputation preceded him. Demanding. Cold. Known for walking out mid-deal if anything didn't meet his standard. And when the showroom printer jammed while finalizing his test drive documents, the tension could have sliced steel. "I'm not waiting," Langston snapped. "I could be at Lexus in 20 minutes. Dean started to explain, but Ray appeared beside him, smooth and unrattled. "Mr. Langston," Ray said calmly, "we'll handwrite anything you need. It's not about paper. It's about people. And my team's got you covered." Langston turned, measuring him. "And you are?" "I'm Ray Booker. I own this dealership." Langston raised an eyebrow. "You look familiar." Ray smiled. "I should. Last time I saw you, I was cleaning a stain off your floor. That was at your downtown office building, 15 years ago." Langston's expression changed. A pause. A memory returning. "I remember that," he said. "You stayed late to clean the conference room. Said your mother taught you to never leave streaks behind." Ray nodded once. "Still applies." Langston exhaled, his edge softening. "You've come far." Ray met his gaze evenly. "Only matters if I bring others with me." By the end of the afternoon, Langston signed a contract for 5 vehicles, not 3. And more than that, he shook hands with nearly everyone he passed on his way out. In the break room later, the team buzzed, not because of the sale, but because they'd earned it together. No panic. No scolding. Just teamwork. Dana leaned against the fridge and said what many had been thinking. "This place feels real now." That evening, Ray stood at the large showroom window. Outside, the sun bled gold across the rows of gleaming cars. Inside, Lana was cracking a joke at reception. Eddie high-fived a detailer. Dean was reviewing the week's goals, casual, steady, respected. Ray turned and walked back toward his office. As he passed the utility closet, he paused. The mop bucket was gone. Not because someone threw it out. But because they no longer needed the disguise. Back in his office, he sat at his desk and opened his notebook one last time. On the last page, he wrote. "Respect isn't a policy. It's a decision you make every day. No title required." He closed the notebook and looked out again. Westgate Auto was no longer just a dealership. It was a reflection of what happens when people are seen. Really seen. Sometimes, it takes walking in silence to truly hear the truth. Ray Booker didn't come in with a badge of authority. He came in with purpose, and uncovered what fear had tried to bury. In a world that often respects power more than people, this story reminds us that true leadership listens before it speaks and lifts others as it rises. Greatness isn't measured by what you demand, but by what you inspire. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and share with someone who needs to hear this. Subscribe to True Echo for more powerful stories like this one. Your voice matters. And so does how you use it.